All right. Well, we didn't have a 5 o'clock game, so we didn't need a cup of coffee. But after what we just saw, I don't think we would have needed one anyway. We are coming to you live on OddsChecker after that fantastic finish. The U.S. is into the round of 16. This is Golden Goal. He is Martino Puccio, the co-host for the State of the Play pod, also writes for The Athletic. I'm Matias Weilmann from OddsChecker. Martino, I start every episode asking you how many cups of coffee you have had. What would you put the equivalent of what you just saw in the U.S. game to how many cups of coffee that would be?
Um,
Two and a half,
I
maybe?
don't know. I know. I would say like two and a half, maybe two with an espresso shot at the end, just to get you back going. I wasn't really that nervous until like the final 10 minutes. So like the change of possession, and then we were having shots on target when we just needed to drain out the clock. It was so nerve wracking at the end of it, and it was so funny because of the reaction of the Iranian players, thinking that they had multiple penalties when none of them were even relatively close to one.
Yeah.
So just to win that 1-0 is amazing. Heading to the knockout stages, it's ahead of schedule for one of the youngest teams in the tournament.
Well, we had a really good day with our picks from yesterday and also our just pre-tournament picks as the groups start to get defined little by little. So let's just start with this game. We talked a lot about the U.S. playing well, but not having the necessary definition. We thought this might be a low-scoring game. Didn't really know what direction to go in. We'll talk about England in a little bit, but you got to at least tip your cap. I mean, Greg Berhalter has gotten a lot of flack for his lack of moves, at least, but at least some of his subs worked out. What was your big takeaway as the U.S. makes it into the round of 16?
They finished the opportunity in front of goal that they had. I mean, McKennie, Dest, and Pulisic just absolutely fearless with that. Dest, it can't even be understated how great of a setup that was, because we keep on seeing poor decision making, whether it leads to poor shots, it leads to the wrong final third pass, it could lead to a corner and all that. But it was very good all around. Even Josh Sargent stepped up. It was a great job. They were on Iran's tail the entire match. It wasn't like they let up like they did against Wales. And again, they showed the difference and showed that experience that they weren't going to allow a 1-0 lead to disappear. And that's exactly what they needed. They needed the win. They got it. Still very nervous about what's going on with Pulisic and then what we're going to do about goal scoring, because we still only have 2 goals. But it's great. It's exactly what they needed to do, and that's to advance the knockout stages. Anything goes now.
Yeah, let's not say that the U.S. did more than they needed to. They did what they needed to, but that was enough. Also had that huge hit you can see on your screen from some of our cappers. You can get MyOC Premium, less than $1 per day. We have a 7-day free trial, 1-week free trial going right now. Also had a couple of our bets hit from before the tournament started. You had the exact points at 5 at 10.50. I know you didn't end up taking that bet, which
Like, I
hurts
haven't
a
done
little
anything.
bit.
Yeah.
And
But this
right now, go ahead.
No. I was going to say, well, this was kind of exactly what ended up happening. You just
Mm-hmm.
scratch and crawl for 1 point against England, beat one of Wales or Iran, and there you are at 5 points. And I mean, listen, plus 1050, amazing how I don't put anything down on that. And now, I mean, we'll see what happens with the round of 16. That's not something I want to be proud of to get right, but I mean, listen, this was they did everything they needed to do, and there was still controversy, of course.
Yeah, never not going to be controversy. Unless Aronson scores a couple of goals in their next match, he's probably not going to be their top goal scorer. But one we still do have alive is the round of 16 exit at plus 270. That might be an interesting cash out, but we will talk about that later this week when we start previewing their match against the Dutch. They will be playing Netherlands, who ended up winning their group. We'll get to them in a little bit. That's at 10 a.m. Eastern time on Saturday. Let's stay within the group for Wales and England. This one, we didn't really know what direction to go in. I really was confident on both teams to score here. Knew that Wales was just going to be desperate and they were going to give England their best match. But a disappointing Wales side kind of ended on the note that they've been showing. England just in complete control here, 3-0.
Yeah, I think this was just pretty simple from them in the second half, and they scored in bunches. It's not even like they were really scoring, in bits and pieces throughout the match. It was just a flurry of them. Rashford stepped up again. He's had a great World Cup. The statistics are going to look great for him in the long run. But what can you say? England taking care of business when they needed to. They were easily the best team in the group, regardless if they got outplayed against the U.S. They dominated their other 2 matches where they scored 9 goals. So there's not much left to say. Happy to see that the over hit, but it was kind of in weird fashion because I was just considering, going under 2.5 at one point in the second half because it's like we're waiting on 3 goals. I didn't touch anything. I did end up cashing out positively because I had over 1.5 in the U.S. game. So that ended up going well. But over 2.5 with that and Netherlands parlay did not end up hitting because VAR is fun, I guess,
Yeah. We'll take what we can get. And we got plus money on England and the U.S. advancing into the round of 16. I thought I had taken that straight. Apparently, I had just taken the dual forecast. Anyway, but we will take that money. Now moving on to Group A. That also finished today. We had Ecuador and Senegal. That was one of 2 games at 10 a.m. This was a fantastic game. I mean, it was tight in the first half. All of a sudden, Ecuador ties it up. They had a penalty from Senegal that they scored on at the end of the first half. And then Senegal, I think it was 2 minutes and 20 seconds later, scores go up 2-1. All Ecuador needed was a tie to advance, but Senegal finds the firepower, which was a concern without Mane when they needed it, and they're through to the round of 16. What did you see from this one?
I think this was exactly the type of veteran and experience response that I expected. Senegal, I wasn't wanting to disrespect them. That's why I thought they still had a great chance for this. And look at how they respond. Like you were saying, Ecuador just needed a draw and they're through, and Senegal kept pushing. That's why they're AFCON champions. This is without the guy who finished second in the Ballon d'Or race, so that's very significant. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like he's going to be back for the rest of the tournament, but this was a success. And again, if you had Netherlands, Senegal again to advance, or if you had Netherlands in a parlay like I did to win the group, I mean, this was just great, and you got goals with it too, especially at plus money odds for the over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hit that over at plus 150 over 2.5, and again, we hit that Netherlands and Senegal straight at plus 225 that we hit on our preview show. You can also get access to all of the premium picks and also game simulators on my OC Premium. Again, we have a 1-week free trial going right now, and we're also giving away $500 for November. And I don't know if you've checked the calendar, but somehow November is almost over. So make sure you're heading over to our YouTube page. All you have to do is subscribe and comment on any video. It could be this one if you're watching on Twitter. Go over to YouTube right now and make sure you're commenting on one of those videos to get an extra entry. So again, subscribe for 1 entry and comment for another one. $500 could be going in your pocket in just a few days. Let's wrap up the action that we saw today. It's Group A again, Netherlands 2, Qatar 0. Mercifully, the host country bows out of the tournament, though they were obviously eliminated before this. The Dutch needed to take care of business, and kind of that's my takeaway that they did.
Win to nil. I love it. I mean, this was Qatar wasn't creating much at all. This was just really like they were just waiting for this 90 minutes to be over. That's what what the match felt like. Yeah, maybe they tried to take their chances when they could, but this really wasn't much of a showing. Cody again scoring in this one. He's just been a phenomenon. I think he's just going to continue to carry them. Unfortunately, the over didn't hit. I thought there would be more goals, but this was also kind of a little bit of a contradiction prior to the tournament. Netherlands don't really have that firepower, and this is kind of one of those matches where you should say, relative to the talent, they should be scoring more than just 2 goals, regardless of VAR. But again, this was a strong showing. They won their group, and that's all you could ask for at this point.
That little VAR comment sounds like someone who took the over on this one. I will take Netherlands to win both halves as well. Got it at plus 135. That's a nice hit. And again, we're going to talk about Netherlands and the U.S. kind of the same story. Who has the firepower to score when they meet up in the round of 16. I had ended up taking Memphis Depay to lead the team in scoring. I honestly should have expected with Gakpo's transfer window coming up soon and a lot of suitors that he would probably lead that team. But alas, Netherlands are in, and again, plus 225. They win the group. Senegal right behind them. It's time now to get to our best bets for tomorrow's action. More teams wrapping up their group stage as we get into the round of 16. We're going to start with Group D first. They have the early window, 10 a.m. It's Australia and Denmark in Group D. Again, there's a lot up to chance in this group. France has punched their ticket into the round of 16, but after that, it is free range. So tell me what you're liking in this match between, a good Denmark team and an Australia team that surprised a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all Australia and Denmark eyeballs on that. Regardless
Mm-hmm.
if France sits a couple of players, Tunisia really needs to pull out a win in that. I'm not fully convinced. There's rumors of Kamavinga at left back for France, so it doesn't even look like Theo Hernandez will be somebody in there. So that's just a lot less attacking prowess. Tunisia it's not completely out of the question for some draw, depending on lineups. Again, this is just all lineup dependent. You have to look out for that kind of stuff. I do think it's going to be low scoring. Rumors are saying Giroud is not going to play either. We'll see what happens with Mbappe. Again, don't anticipate 90 minutes, even if he does play. So that's the kind of important thing to look out for. But for me, it's both teams to score is no in Australia and Denmark. I don't really love what Australia have to show in terms of goal scoring. Denmark is capable of seeing out a game 1-0, 2-0. And again, looking at those types of bets is nothing. There's nothing wrong with that too. We've seen this success with the Netherlands, but you just kind of worry about the firepower and finishing with both sides. And again, Australia, they really just need a draw to see this out. They're not going to be overly aggressive in this one. And Denmark, do they have the capability of scoring multiple goals? Yes, but I think it's been a frustrating tournament for them. But I trust Denmark, and especially with their defense, I'm going to say both teams to score no.
Yeah, you have France with 6 points again, who they have already clinched their spot. Australia with 3, Denmark and Tunisia both with 1. I like Denmark to win, and that's kind of where my plays are going to come from. Also to note, I don't know if you want to go for this, Australia to score first at plus 240 is the best value you can get. They have scored first in their first 2 matches of this tournament. That's always something to look at. And I just like Denmark with obviously the game on the line and their chance to keep going in the tournament. So if you want to take Denmark money line at that point, you can go Australia first and Denmark to come from behind and win. And you can get that up near 15 plus 1500. So that's obviously good value. It gets dangerous, obviously, when you start playing a lot of narratives. But it sounds like we're both kind of backing Denmark here.
Yeah, I don't see anywhere else for this. It's all about the experience. Australia's done great. I'm not trying to discredit them. Good for them, but I'd rather rock with experience. I don't like losing when I'm betting on teams that are risky, and I don't care what the odds tell me. The odds are pretty decent for certain things to go well and for Denmark to win that aren't high risk.
Yeah, they're not a crazy crazy favorite. So I would definitely sprinkle some juice on there for Denmark, who is, I think, clearly the better team. The other game in that 10 a.m. window, still staying within Group D, it is Tunisia and France. We talked about France maybe sitting out a couple players, again, for the 8 millionth time. They've already locked up their place. But that makes it kind of interesting for me because France doesn't have a lot to play for. They still want to try to win the group, obviously. But they do not have to play anyone that is at least remotely banged up. Again, this has to be a very dependent lineup-based betting game for me. Is there something you like here? You like a lot of goals, little goals?
I think looking around at like under 2.5 type of bets, or just even France to jump out in the first half, like say, hey, okay, we don't have to go full throttle 90 minutes, but if we do like to possibly put ourselves in a position to stay ahead or still grind out just a draw with the players that they have. The defensive depth is extraordinary. Saliba is arguably one of the best defenders in the world this season, and he's like their rotational defender. So even if they're substitutes at the center back position, they're not giving up that much. So that really means they're not going to be conceding, in my opinion. So I expect something low scoring, under 2.5. And if guys like Mbappe, Giroud, Dembele, Griezmann, if they sit or don't get a full 90 minutes, that means less opportunities to score, which means lower scoring. And for me, that's why I like staying away from overs in this. But under 2.5, again, if odds kind of swing live for over 1.5, that's always something to look at. But for me, I like under 2.5 is just kind of where I'm sitting.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we're going to see a lot of scoring in this. I kind of like Tunisia +1 in this, if anything. We've seen a lot of promise from this Tunisia team. Like you said, France has something to play for, but it's not for all the marbles. So I don't expect everything to be on the line there. That might be kind of an interesting play. And look, if you think there's a chance that France might lose this, you can sprinkle some money on Tunisia money line. I'm not saying it's a smart bet. I'm saying if you have that inkling, or if you want to take a double chance on either winning. Because I don't think we see a draw in this one. How do you feel about that?
I don't know. I think a draw would just have
to
be
terrible.
No, not terrible. I think a circumstance like that would have to be Tunisia who scored first, and then France like
Mhm.
try and level it up, and it plays out like that. A grinding out of a result, it's not out of the question. I like that more than Tunisia again, but anything
Mhm.
stands at this rate. It's lineup dependent. If France pumped this game, and if you're anticipating that, you bet that prior to lineups. That's
Mhm.
my suggestion. The number will still be good because it's Tunisia versus France, but if you
Mhm.
have that intuition about that, if you like to go with your gut, which I like to advise people, just so I don't
Mhm.
get blamed, but that's why you go with that because they're going to change significantly. If players are missing and sitting out and are reportedly
Mhm.
not getting the minutes, then that's where the odds shift. But you want to jump ahead of that, obviously. So that's the way you kind of have to think.
Yeah, just think about a star quarterback in the NFL kind of going on that injury report. Had that happen like week 3 with Justin Herbert. Didn't know if he was going to play. Line changed completely. So again, if you still like Tunisia or even against the spread there, make sure you're jumping on them before those lineups come out. Okay, let's move on to our second group because if you thought that first group is interesting, it gets a lot dicier with our 2 o'clock window. We are going to start with Poland and Argentina. Poland right now leads the group. Argentina, after that big win against Mexico, has 3 points. There are some other teams lurking here. This seemed, I think you called this a layup of a group for Argentina. I really wish you hadn't been so certain about that now from a personal standpoint, but tell me kind of where you're leaning here because I don't think you're extremely confident in the goal scoring.
No, I mean we're seeing issues of goal scoring against all types of teams here, and maybe these teams were better defensively to give credit to, but
Mm-hmm.
it really again lineup dependent. The Enzo Fernandez, I don't know how many times I've had to say his name everywhere.
You've
It's
texted me a couple times
yeah,
this.
he has to play. He has to start. It's
Mm-hmm.
everything for them. I think at this point he changed the game a little bit when they faced off Saudi Arabia. Yeah, I understand they blew the lead, but look what happens again when he plays for Mexico. It's about control of the match. It's not so much about score line. Is he capable of scoring a banger like he did? Absolutely. But the difference is Rodrigo De Paul needs help. He's been playing terrible. He's arguably been their most disappointing player. And Julian Alvarez, I think, needs to start from the beginning. This was, I think, kind of the monkey off their back. They're not completely safe yet, which is the crazy part for
Mm-hmm.
Argentina. And I don't expect a lot of goals. Poland's been stout defensively. They're not really allowing too many chances. Yes, I think Mexico has been terrible because look at that. But again, some of these counterattacks, if Chucky Lozano had some help because he was all alone on these counters in the Mexico Argentina game, that could easily be another goal or two
Mm-hmm.
with that. But for me, the finishing is odd. There hasn't been too much that you could rely upon offensively from these teams. So I'm not touching money lines because Argentina is still heavily favored. I think a lot of the money from the public is
Mm-hmm.
going on them. That's not something I want to touch. Um, and then again, under 2.5. I know there's been a lot of unders, but to me, it's just not something that I like. This is again, if I were to place
A tough
something,
one.
would be under, but it's probably the toughest one of the day for sure.
Mm. You can get Argentina best value at minus 205 on DraftKings. You see on your screen there, that's our odds checker grid. So make sure you're getting the best value on any bet you make. There's no reason to not get the best odds across any books. And if you don't have an account yet with the books, we have tons of no risk bets and free deposit, free bets that you can get. So make sure you're heading to our free bets tab on our page to make sure you're making up and again, getting the best value. For me, and again, this is dependent. I don't see any scenario where Lautaro Martinez doesn't start. But this is someone that we've been on since the tournament started. I know you've been a big fan since before the World Cup started.
Yeah.
It's got to happen eventually, right? I think if you can get decent value on him, up near the 200s, if it even creeps up into the 300s, then that's something that I'm probably jumping on because I think Argentina's going to score at some point in this game. I'm not overly confident in the
Yeah.
result, but that sounds like more of a personal problem for me.
He's so streaky. He's incredibly streaky.
Mm-hmm.
He's just that type of player that'll just do nothing, get subbed off early in the last match, and he could start in this and just be the best player on the field. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
dead serious about that. That involves Messi. It's not completely out of the question because only Messi has 2 goals, but maybe some brace where it goes well for him. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I just think that this is solely dependent upon the midfield. If the midfield is able to do the work and win those ground duels, which I do think Poland has a better one, but if Rodrigo De Paul steps up, if you have Enzo from the beginning, that means Messi has to drop a lot less deep than he does. He could be a little bit closer to goal. And we see what happens when Messi is closer to goal. He's still terrifying. And again, that's as a passer, because he got the assist as well on top of the finish. So who's to say they were so close against Saudi Arabia? How many times? Lautaro was right there. It's slight shoulder offside. He has the ability to run in behind, and that's someone that they'll use. So we'll see what happens. I don't hate that whatsoever. I'm just gonna keep hammering that like I keep hammering Luka Doncic future MVPs, because it's eventually got to happen. So.
Yeah, eventually, again, it's got to happen. And you mentioned it. This isn't exactly a hot take, but good things happen when Messi is attacking with the ball. But the reason we have said that this group is kind of up in the air and that anything can happen is because of our last game of the day. Again, still in the 2:00 window, staying in Group C. It's Saudi Arabia and Mexico. We figured this was probably going to be a game with importance down the stretch, but maybe not for the reason we thought. Again, a reset. Poland has 4 points. Argentina behind them at 3 with a +1 goal difference. So they're currently ahead of Saudi Arabia, who also has 3 points. They're -1 in the goal difference. Mexico is still alive. They have 1 point, a -2 goal difference, but everything needs to go right for them. Well, what are you looking at here? Because I don't know. From the looks of it, I don't think you're going to see many goals in any game.
I don't know where it's coming from with Mexico. We're talking about like their captains and leaders getting injured. Just a total meltdown towards the end. Chucky Lozano looks so frustrated every time there's a counterattack, and rightfully so. Like, we're talking about 3-on-1s with him, and he's getting no support. It's just a tiring thing, and now they're facing arguably the best defensive team in the group. And Saudi Arabia has been so fantastic as a system. They didn't really play poor whatsoever against Poland. That was very winnable. And again, I think it's an under, and I think Saudi Arabia is going to win. I think Saudi Arabia advances to the next stage, because I like and am rooting for Argentina to advance. So again, this is both teams to score. I see that's something that you like too. That's absolutely not out of the question. But for me, I think Saudi Arabia, like a 1-0 win, is something that I see in the cards here. They just control the majority of the matches, and now they're facing the worst offensive team in the group. That's why I like what I like. And also separate. You could place these separate. You could place them in a parlay together. And again, I just think this is how it's going to go down with a Saudi Arabia win. Really shocking people again.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to take an under 2.5, which is something that I like too, and you want to take both teams to score, it's not exactly the best idea. You're basically just, obviously it has to be a 1-1 draw there. I wouldn't exactly recommend it. At that point, I would just take a 1-1, exact score. But that's my thing with Mexico, is the fact that, it was all counterattack against Argentina until they got scored on. Then we saw the game open up a little bit, and they did look a little better at that point. They end up conceding the late goal to make it 2-0. I just think Saudi Arabia has looked better at this point. I think Mexico is going to come out hungry, and they're going to know that they obviously need a win to even have a chance. And I think that opens them up enough for Saudi Arabia to grab a goal. I think, this group is crazy because we can basically see any combination of teams advance to the round of 16. So I'm going to put you on the spot. At the end of tomorrow, and in what order do you think this group looks like?
I think we see Argentina in first, based on the differential, and then we'll just have Saudi Arabia in second. This, like you said, it can go either way. The last thing I see is really Mexico advancing and making it out of the group. I don't see that in terms of differential and ways things are going down. But yeah, that's what I have. Argentina and Saudi Arabia. Like, it's just, this can go either way. And again, these games, it depends on the approach. Like, I would definitely consider live betting in some of these things, because if one team goes ahead in one match, I think that's where things open up like crazy. And I would anticipate that to happen, especially in Saudi Arabia and Mexico. But I don't see Mexico scoring. So that's really the thing. But again, don't be shocked if like Mexico were to score something like that. It's so typical of them to do something like that. This is still an experienced side. This isn't a side that's going to lay down easily. I think they play for a lot of pride, but it's a quality thing at this point.
Yeah, I mean, look, we saw Spain beat Costa Rica 7-0. Japan beat Germany like an hour after that. And then, Japan lost to Costa Rica 1-0. So anything goes at this point, including apparently Canelo Alvarez and Lionel Messi having beef. So it's been a weird tournament overall. He's Martino Puccio. I'm Matias Weilmann. We are Golden Goal. We will be back with you same time tomorrow. We are with you every day of the week, Monday to Friday, recapping what happened in the day's action. Looking forward to what is happening the day after. As we get into the round of 16, the later rounds, we will still be with you. We will tell you our best bets, what we've seen, and how to get your money. We are Golden Goal. See you same time, same place tomorrow.